Konnichiwa, this is the Shogunstein, and this is a look at the Heritage Edition of the game Montana. But there's a bit of a backstory, and then also just some thoughts on Kickstarter and used games, all within this saga. It's almost like we're watching an episode of Yellowstone. There's so many moving parts to this. So I first played Montana probably in 2018, 2019, and it was a great game. It's a worker placement. You're looking to, got elements of Euro, worker placement, and you're ultimately looking to put settlements down. And what I really liked about this game was it was a game when I played it that, unlike a lot of games, I actually right away understood what I needed to do to win, if that makes any sense. It was just a very logical, the way my brain thinks, it was a very logical game, if that makes any sense, where it was very clear, not necessarily easy to do, but it was very clear what I needed to do. I needed to get pumpkins, or I needed to get copper, and I needed then to convert it to do this, to do that, and ultimately put down my settlements. And it was one of the first games that when I got into gaming that actually everything kind of clicked. And just the other day I was at a used game fair, and again this is July 2026. I first played this game, again I'm going to say about 2019, and I picked up this beautiful edition from the first Kickstarter, the Heritage Edition, with just beautiful components. It's a really nice game, and I got it for $15. Beautiful components. This is the Heritage Edition, the kicked up version. One other interesting thing about this game is it actually has a spinner. Not a lot of games still use a spinner. The other thing I really liked about this game, other than it being very logical, was that it was a worker placement type game that played in like an hour, maybe even a little less. So it did not take forever to play. So not only was it fun and was very logical and had a spinner, but you can play it in an hour. And at the time when we would still be going to the friendly local game store, you're trying to play several games. So I played this a few times, and they put on Kickstarter, and I was new to the hobby, they put on Kickstarter a second edition with some expansions. So in 2019, I backed the second edition Kickstarter from Big Kid Games. And that edition was, I think, before tax and shipping and handling, it was like $60 or $70. It also, I believe I backed because there were 2 expansions that were coming out as well. This is the first edition that I picked up for $15 just the other day. This is before those expansions were announced. Those expansions, if you're not in the United States, I believe, you can get. And that takes me to where this becomes a bit of a saga. So I was new to Kickstarter, and I backed, and again, it's hard to remember back to 2019, it's pre-pandemical. I definitely backed the new edition of the Kickstarter, and I'm pretty sure I backed the 2 expansions. Minimum I put down was at least 60 plus shipping and handling. But if I backed those expansions, it would have been more. But here's where the story gets a little funny. The day the Kickstarter, and I was new to Kickstarter. That's the other important thing here. I didn't really understand a lot about Kickstarter. I was kind of new to the hobby. Like a day or 2 after the Kickstarter closed and they processed my money, I was at a used game fair through the Arizona Game Fair, which doesn't exist anymore, another casualty of the pandemical. And there was a basic edition, not any of these fancy bits, but the basic edition that I bought used for $20. Now, had I bought that used edition before the Kickstarter closed, I would have canceled my pledge, even though this had all the fancy bits, the Kickstarter edition and the expansions. I would have canceled it. But it had closed. They, processed, my payment. And then a couple days later, there was a used copy of the basic edition for $20. And I figured, okay, the game might take a year to come out. For $20, I'll buy the basic edition until my fancy version comes out. Now, what I didn't know, because I was new to Kickstarter and I didn't realize that you should do these things, that this company, Big Kid Games, which was putting this out, again, put this first edition out and had put the second edition out, they had a previous Kickstarter which was in trouble. And it was some sort of baking cake game, Sweet Mess, which took years to come out. Eventually, some other company bought that game, and that Sweet Mess came out. Big Kid had that Sweet Mess, which wasn't coming out until another company bought it. They also, and again, I found this out after the fact, under a different name, had two other Kickstarter games, one called Manchukuo, which dealt with, I believe, China and the Qing dynasty and the Manchurians. And then they had another game which was like some sort of Japanese demon game. Neither of those games have ever been delivered. And again, this is all in 2019. So fast forward. This is now 2026. Sweet Mess was eventually taken over by another company, and those people got some version of the game. My fancy edition of Montana never came out. The two other games under the other name, it was some sort of, again, some other company, same guy, different name of the company. Again, there was this Manchukuo game, and then something with an O, where it was like a Japanese deity, spirit, demon type game. Those two games have never come out. So when I backed this, not only did he have Montana out, but he had three other games out. 3 of the 4 have never delivered. At some point, I got rid of, out of frustration, my basic edition. I ended up selling it. I think it was one of the casualties of when I moved. But I had I had my basic edition that I bought at the used fair. And again, this just the other day at the Silver Key Lounge, we have a nice, healthy used game market. I got this first edition Kickstarter for $15. And it's beautiful. Played it again the other day. Loved this game. And again, you're done in 45 minutes. Great edition. So 2 lessons here with this saga of Montana. 1, used games are the way to go. I know there's a lot of FOMO, and I know there's a lot of these big games. The other day, I saw on I don't know, it was GameFound or Kickstarter. I like the Japanese themed games, and there's a couple new games with like Japanese themes. And I was looking at one of them, and they said the bargain price was like $125. Book now, pledge now, and 2 years you get your $125 game. The other one was also probably around $125, and the predicted delivery date was like 2 or 3 years from now, and that's predicted. Most of these Kickstarter games are delayed way past the predicted date. So just to kind of compare, I went to the used game fair. I got Montana. I got Kinfire Council with the upgrade pack and the expansion. I also picked up Zona, a game with a Chernobyl theme. I picked up all 3 of these games. Together, I paid $45. And I got a physical game. I actually got a game. One of the games I had played already, Montana, and liked it. The other 2, I took a chance. This, my buddy Board Game Bullocks gave this a nice review. So I got this based on his review. The other game for $10 looked like an interesting theme. But I got 3 very nice, bigger games for $45 then and there. 2019, I backed Montana. I still don't have the game. People that backed two other games in addition to Montana from the same company, again, the second under the two different names, they still haven't gotten the game. Those two Kickstarters I just looked at recently, again, over $100 for the game, one of which was predicting at least 2 years if it comes out on time. So to me, it's just increasingly crazy. And, you know, occasionally I'll back a Kickstarter, especially if it's a local company. And there have been cases where, you know, say like Talon Strike Studios, I knew the people that ran it. Tiny Epic knew the people that ran it. So again, if it's like a local and you know the people, I understand the whole idea of crowdfunding and helping them out. But some of these other games, it just seems ridiculous to me to pay all that money, to wait all that time and then maybe get a game. So I think used games are the way to go. And again, Montana, great game. Basically, again, if you look here, you got the terrain, and you know you're doing Euro worker placement. And you're trying to get the resources you need to be able to get the settlement down on the tile. You get you do by the water. You get a canteen. You get an extra turn. It's a great little game. 45 minutes to an hour. Nice worker placement. Euro, a lot of fun. You're not sitting there for 3 hours. You get a bunch of games. And beautiful production. I'll give Big Kid credit for that. They did have a beautiful production here. I would have liked my copy that I ordered back in 2019. But again, ultimately, I've said this before in videos, in the case of board games, almost any game that I've wanted on Kickstarter that I haven't backed at some point, sometimes not long after the Kickstarter, sometimes it may take a little while, but at some point I have found them at the used market for pennies on the dollar. Best example I can, again, $15, beautiful game, fully tricked out, great deal. This Kinfire Council, it was $20. I got the upgrade kit with all the fancy bits, the base game, and the expansion. $20 used. And it didn't look like it was used. Dog Park, that was a game that I actually waited for. It maybe took like 2 years for me to finally get a copy. I was able to get a barely touched Kickstarter copy with all the expansions for like $40, where I almost backed it at like $100 for just like the base game. So my advice is, if you don't have FOMO and you're patient, used games are the way to go. Now, back to Montana, you're looking for a fun Western-themed game. Maybe you're going to watch Yellowstone. Maybe you're going to watch 1883. By the way, the guy in 1883, he's got that new movie, Man of War, very good movie. Might have to do a review on that. But Montana, great game. Highly recommend. It's just too bad soured by a terrible Kickstarter experience. So see if you can find it used. This is the Shogunstein.